Hello and welcome to the Peak Endurance Podcast. Thank you for joining me once again here on the pod. Episode 182 is an interview with Nigel Hill. I last interviewed Nigel in 2021 when he won DU, or Down Under. Nigel is such a humble, unassuming guy who is also a phenomenal runner. Ron joins me on this one to chat with Nigel about his win at the GSER 100 miler race recently, his training up to the event, his strategy going into the race and how that ended up panning out for him, because we all know to plan is one thing, but whatever happens, and also his view on the wintry weather, which I really loved. I think you'll really enjoy this one. I love it when people tell me how much they love the podcast, but I would love it even more if they went onto Apple Podcasts and gave the show 5 stars and wrote a short review. In that way, they are, or you are, helping the podcast grow. And don't you want to help a runner out? I don't get paid to do this, but knowing that it means something to you, enough that you could spend 2 minutes writing a review, makes me keep plugging away at it. Basically, when you write a review, you're telling Apple Podcasts that people are listening to the show and that they should show the show to people who are looking for podcasts. And in this way, the podcast grows. Now, I just saw that the podcast is doing really well in Lebanon. Thank you to everyone from Lebanon who is listening. Hello. So the link to Apple Podcasts is in the show if you are willing to help me out, which I would greatly appreciate. Lots going on with peak endurance coaching. Other than, I'm loving coaching everybody, but I also like to have some extras. My goal setting webinar is on January the 11th, which will help you get your goals and habits set. So slingshot you into your best year yet, and don't we all need one of those? Then starting on the 15th of January, I have my new 28-day stretching and mobilizing challenge. This will be a cracker. I know a lot of people say, runners don't need to stretch, but I'm telling you, if you want to keep your range of motion and able to run for as long as possible, you want to be doing this. There'll be twice weekly classes that will be recorded, ready for you to see again, and daily poses or stretches to see, all for $85 for 4 weeks. That is brilliant. Also, my mindfulness workshop can now be purchased at any time as an as-you-go workshop. That will help you turn the mindfulness practice into a daily habit. So you can start that anytime and still get all the same activities and benefits. So go to the website peakendurancecoaching.com.au to find out more. Don't forget to help my sponsors by supporting them. They support me, they need support back. So go to Health and High Performance for any of those niggles to keep them at bay. Then, of course, the best chocolate is at Peak Chocolate. And why it's best is it tastes awesome, but it's also actually good for you because it's like sugar-free. That's awesome. So go to peakchocolate.com.au to get 15% off some of that yummy chocolate. They have a new product, which I am loving, their new milk chocolate mix for hot chocolate. It is absolutely divine. It really gives me a chocolate hit without the guilt. And I do love a hot chocolate every evening. Anyway, enjoy this interview with Nigel. Hi, Nigel, and welcome to the Peak Endurance Podcast.
How you going?
I'm pretty good. How about you?
I'm pretty good. So as I said, I'm at my daughter's gymnastics, so it's downtime.
Yeah. So, of course, I've got Ron here with me.
How are you doing?
Yeah, good, thank you.
That's good.
And yes, you're sitting in your car. You're not driving, and you are waiting for your daughter. So good on you for doing the good dad stuff as well.
Yeah, no dramas.
So how many kids do you have?
I've got 2 kids. My son Max is 12, and my daughter Liza is 10. So
you're still at a very busy stage with kids.
I'm obviously they play a bit of sport. I help out coach on a couple of those, and it is a juggling act. There's enough running around during the week, but I get a real lot of enjoyment out of seeing my kids. So I was lucky enough that my parents would, support me in everything I did, run me around like idiots. So I'm happy to give back and do what I've got to do. So
are either of them interested in running?
You know what, my son was originally, and then he sort of wavered a little bit, but he made the actual cross country team this year. So
Nice.
he dabbles in it, but yeah, it's probably not his. He loves footy and he plays
Yeah.
basketball. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, and then my
Although
daughter.
running keeps him fit for both of those.
Yeah. So essentially, I found actually when he did his cross country during the year, he got fitter and it was helping his footy as well. So it actually worked hand in hand. But my daughter, on the other hand, she's like the sprinter, and God help this little soul. She entered the 1500 at school, even though she was a sprinter, but it was all just to try and make me proud.
Oh, bless her.
She nearly died, and she goes, Dad, I think I'm a sprinter. So yeah, no, she's actually really fast. I go, look, Liz, you're the fast one, and I'm the long distance. Let's just
That's
be
right.
happy with that.
Yeah.
So,
No, in spite of the way it may seem to people who may be listening to this for the first time, this is not a kids in sport podcast.
yeah, exactly.
What we actually are interviewing you for is because of GSER, the Great Southern Endurance Run, and congratulations on your resounding and amazing win.
Yeah, no, it was I was pretty happy actually. Like you know, you train hard for these things. It's a long, slow burn, and I went in pretty well. Like I was pretty happy where I was at, and before the race, I was aiming for a podium.
Yeah.
And then to sort of come out on top was even I was bloody happy. So yeah.
No, and I mean, you won by quite a fair margin. It was close to an hour and a half, wasn't it?
Yeah, like that was sort of blew me away a little bit, to be quite honest. Like knowing Owen Davies himself as well, comes from Gisborne around the area, and so we sort of semi-train together sometimes. So yeah, like I quality field, and I didn't know Matt Gort so much, but I knew he could run. So the field was pretty good at the top end, and yeah, to come away from him, I suppose, was a little bit of a shock at the time, and then to be able to keep putting time into him was, yeah, I suppose we put these programs in place and get primed for the day, and you know, this one really worked. So you take that as a win.
Yeah, definitely. What was your training like in the lead up, you know, injury free?
Yeah, look, to be quite honest, over the last probably 2 years or so, I've been pretty injury free. I think since I've moved to the Macedon Ranges and stuff, more just running on trails more often and stuff, I think has helped as well. But again, being a lot more in tune to my body and knowing when to push, when to stop, and so forth. But I'd set the plan for, you know, going into it, and I'd had consistent months where I'd gone for like progressing like in a pyramid type thing, going from 300 Ks a week to 320, 350, 370. Oh, sorry, 3 a month. And,
oh my God, I was going to have a heart attack.
Sorry. Anyway, I got up to over 400 or so, and then probably a month out, I plan to have even a bigger month, and then my work, I'm a landscaper, and just got so crazy. And I'm not the biggest taper type of person. I normally just peak to the day, and and about 2 or 3 weeks before, like it was literally so busy, I just said something's got to give, and I was busy physically, and mentally I was pretty drained. So I gave up virtually running for the best part of 2 weeks. And I just said, look, I simply can't get any fitter, but I can be mentally strong, where the milers, you need to be mentally strong. So I did that. And then I probably had too much running off. And then I did a run on a Saturday or Sunday before the event, and I pulled up. I'm glad I did it actually, because it just got me refiring and going again, just to get my brain going. Hey, you got to run in a week's time. So no injuries, very consistent, very, very happy the way it all went.
So do you think you'll employ a taper again, seeing as it was quite successful this time?
It is what as I said, you just got to listen to yourself, and I was definitely on, you know, couldn't get any fitter or anything like this. But to other people in that as well, like you get to 2 weeks before it, like you can't simply get any fitter. You just really need to be undercooked and overcooked. So,
Yes.
but I don't necessarily tape. I always just continually keep ticking over what I've been doing without going crazy.
Yes.
But this time I literally stopped. Like I went from doing 115 Ks to like 20. I think it was, it wasn't meant to be so significant. But that's how it played out.
But you, like you said, you're a landscaper, so you're working physically hard
Yeah.
anyway. So it's
Yeah.
not
So
like you're sitting on a chair getting completely deconditioned.
nah, and that's where I think I do have a lot of benefit. And where people feel like they need to do 150 Ks a week, where I don't need to, because I could be up to 100 and getting the vert I need. But I know that I'm on the tools or whatever some days for 8 hours, so I'm actually getting extra without even having to go and do an extra run or something like that as well. So.
And do you do like, do you go to the gym and do strength work, or do you figure that the work you do is functional training anyway?
Yeah. So I did previously, and then I moved away to the Mason Raid, and I moved away from the person I'd been going to, and just out of lack of convenience and stuff like that, I sort of canned it, and then I sort of just rely on what I do on the job. So it's funny actually. I started coaching another guy, and we talked about the strength and stuff like that as well. And I said, look, I'm probably not the most profile person to be looking at because I get it through me, but he actually joined one of your strength and courses and stuff like that as well. And I advised him. I said, look, reach out. I can give you exercises that, but half the time, people, when you give them to them, they don't actually do them.
Yes.
And it's not worth putting on there anyway. So, but he and that was a good thing about it. I said, he reached out to yourself, and he's actually really happy with yours. So feather in your cap. So. Yeah.
Good. That's good to hear.
Yeah.
And so you were doing around about, approximately 100 Ks a week, and getting your vert in and those sorts of things. Were you doing like any kind of speed work or quality sessions?
Yeah. So, because it was a long, slow burn, this one, I did Cradle Mountain back in February, and then after that, I'm like, okay, I've got to set myself something, and I never ran in the alpine areas so much, so it was a bit of a challenge, and so I just locked it in, and essentially because I was pacing for Simon Neil at DU or anything like that, so I jumped on with him, and so I didn't have any events in May, so that's why I went to sort of later on. So that's how I set myself from back then. So I'd set my speed work and stuff like that to be done earlier in the year, and get myself going, and how I break my training down into phases. So early days, for the first 4 or 5 weeks of the thing, I just concentrate on speed, low Ks, and to really get that going, and intervals, pyramids, all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
And so then closer to the event, you were just generally running.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. So there was speed work, and then there was a bit of core, and I did very long run as well, just to get me thinking. I was getting bored of training and stuff like that, so I just slipped in an event to throw in there, and that was like a speed event too, because Reese Edwards and that were there. It was bloody quick.
How did you go in that?
I finished third in that event. I was actually. I wasn't body-wise. I'd been landscaping and paving, so my body wasn't really 100%. And it wasn't my A grade race, so I wasn't totally, to the well type of sort of situation. So, but to come out third in a pretty hot field, I was actually really happy. So,
so in the lead up to GSER, did you do lots of training runs? Training with your poles?
I thought I knew we'd get onto this, and I was actually going to come back to you and see if you needed a class or a master class in how to not use poles and get upfield. In my book, I've run and won the last 2 events with GSER and DU without using poles. So I reckon the proof's in the pudding that you actually don't need them.
No, you do extremely well not using poles, 100%. I totally agree.
I actually spoke to a mate who did UTMB, and we were chatting about it, and about the poles, and he's like,
I reckon you need poles for that.
Yeah, well, it is on my radar, UTMB, and I'm like, do I just still go with no poles? More than likely not going to use them, but I did watch another doco on hard rock as well, and I was like, far out. Maybe you do need these things.
Well, do you know what? The Americans were always going to UTMB and were never getting on the podium because they refused to use poles. As soon as they started to use poles, they started to do a lot better. Just saying,
Just saying. But and if it ain't broke, you don't fix it.
No, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And is your rule normally that your pacers don't have poles?
No, I don't really care. It's
I thought it was a rule.
oh, it doesn't actually. It was funny. Owen and Matt both had poles and we were running together for the first 60 70 Ks and stuff like that, and they were clicking along and they dropped them a couple times and bits and pieces. I was like, oh, yeah, but yeah, it actually didn't bother me that much in this race. Where other races it really annoyed me, but yeah, with the paces, yeah, most of the times they just know that I don't use them or won't need them. So yeah.
Because I'm sure we spied in one of the videos a pacer running next to you with his poles in his hands, and we were quite surprised.
Yeah. But look, each of their own. That doesn't come into my book thing, but most half the time when they're pacing as well, yeah, at that stage you're not going super quick and stuff like that as well, so you don't probably need them anyway.
Yeah,
that's my theory.
Yeah.
One that the mandatory gear and the pack that we had, I don't think I needed an extra bloody couple of kilos on my thing, so it was heavy enough as it is.
The poles don't weigh a couple of kilos.
I suppose it's like with shoes, isn't it? That a couple of kilograms makes you go faster in a marathon, doesn't it?
Yes.
So.
Yeah. Anyway, you're right. Each to their own. Like I was an early adopter of poles, and so I love them. But I also know that these things are quite doable without poles if you train adequately for that.
Yeah. You got to know how to use them before you take them into a race, I believe.
Honestly,
otherwise, don't bother.
I agree 100% because they will just get in the way of you and others if you don't know how to use them properly. I agree 100%.
Yeah.
So you just touched briefly on running with Owen and Matt. How did that all pan out? You obviously started at a very similar pace. How were you?
Yeah,
at the start?
Look, at the start, I was just standing by myself, and I had planned to go pretty casually, and then Owen and Matt sort of took off right at the start, and I was like, I'm going to make a decision here. And I was like, I can't afford to let him go. So I jogged up behind him and I just thought, I'll see how the pace is going and so forth. And it wasn't super hot and very sustainable on a flat sort of part. So I just tacked on. So it was okay. And then we sort of hit like the northwest spur, which was slow going anyway. So we were just sort of together. So, but yeah, I didn't know the course greatly, and that they seemed like they had done the course or done parts of it and whatever. So I was happy just to sort of third wheel and just roll a little bit. And then like it was wide out and stuff like that as well. So we didn't really get much views and stuff. But yeah, I was happy with their pace. Occasionally, Owen might have rolled off the front and I just said, look, I'm happy for him to go. And then he'd come back or whatever it is. So everyone was just sort of at their own pace, but we stayed together because everyone was pretty comfortable. So it was good in that regard.
Yeah.
And oh crap, I forgot what I was going to say. Yeah, the weather. Now, how did the weather affect you? For those who may not know, we had some decent rain and decent cold, and how did it affect you? What was your experience with the weather?
Yeah, obviously, well, you know what, I was glad it wasn't snowing or snow, I think. But yeah, I sort of said to myself pre-race that, like, I'll surrender my soul to my environment, and whatever conditions they throw at me, I'll be right. And then the week of the race, I'm like, you know what, I actually hope it rains and pisses down and throws out, because I know I'm going to be okay. And I don't know how other people are going to deal with this, but I know I'm going to be fine. Like, there's been days it's been a long winter working in the outdoors.
Yeah.
And we've been working in some really shit conditions.
Oh, so you would be working in it all the
So
time. So
I've been
you're
used to having
exposed.
wet boots, muddy boots, like
Yeah.
up to my ankles and bits and pieces. So that's why I said, you know what, I hope it rains because I'm going to be okay. So
Yeah.
it's going to affect people more than me. So that was, what. Look, I was hoping to get a couple of views and of the surroundings, and everyone told me it's so beautiful, but I literally did not see one mountain for 25 hours. And then at one stage, I think I nearly did, and I tried to get my phone out and take one. And I'm not a big photo taker, but I thought I've got to take one, and I couldn't open my phone because my hands were too wet. So
Yeah.
I canned that idea.
Yeah.
So the weather, look, it was pretty ordinary, and I actually got some pretty severe chafing on my back because I think it was so wet and my pack was just rubbing and stuff like that as well.
I saw a photo in the Adventurers of their back all chafed. Was that you?
Yeah. So that was me. And like I could definitely feel it.
That looked awful.
It wasn't great. And I don't know. It was about halfway and stuff like that. I was like, oh, and I'd try and pull, like it was like weeping, and then I'd pull it off my thermal, and I'd pull it off and it'd stick, and then pull it down. I was like, you know what? I don't think I can change this situation, and I just need to try and put it out of my mind. And I didn't tell any of my crew because then I knew they'd fuss over me and be wanting me to do something. So, I just bit the bullet and tried to not think about it. Occasionally, when I think we're coming back over, where was it? The Twins on the return, and because your hands and knees and you fall over it, it was hurting when it was moving. But yeah.
So why did it chafe so much? I've never seen that.
I said this to someone else, like, that's the top that I wear a lot. That's the same pack, same everything. I can only just think that it was the rain and it was so wet. I actually don't know. I'm doing another event. I was like, do I get rid of the top, or because if you're doing the same, you're going to get the same result. So I did wonder that.
Yeah, wow. Oh, well, the mystery's solved because a friend sent me that photo going, look at this guy's back. Oh my God. And we're like, whoa, that must be so painful. But it was you.
Well, it wasn't that much fun. I'll give you the big tip. Yeah.
No, I'll have to somehow or other add that photo to the show notes so people know what we're actually talking about.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so who was your crew? Who was your crew for the weekend?
So with this crew, so this time my wife, she tapped out. She goes, someone else can do it. And I was like, that's okay. She had to do kids sports and bits and pieces. So that was no dramas. So my masseur, Georgia, she stepped in as chief crew. So it was pretty cool. And then I had, so Matt, who was my pacer, he decided to come up early as well and sort of help out Georgia. And another mate of mine who he was doing the 56, Andrew, and he come up early as well to sort of just help out, and then come back and he ran the 56. So there was mainly team of three, and then we actually had 10 or so people from the Macedon Rangers in our house coming up to do the event and so forth. So they sort of chipped in wherever or if anyone needed help. But so. Pretty solid effort by the crew. I think we literally filled up when we were in Bright. And the thing, I think Georgia and that nearly did 440 Ks, but by the time they went up and back and down and around and back. Georgia was pretty knackered towards the end. No sleep. And so I think she ended up having to sleep at the last aid station. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's tiring on the crew too, and they've got to be driving a car which requires extra concentration, and so it's tough work for the crew too. Absolutely.
Because
that's right. The
there was only
of that area is it might be 30 Ks for the runner, but it's a 100K drive to get from one spot to the other.
That's the thing. So after the first aid station, they had to come back, and they virtually got going and then went back up. And they were there, and they said they only just made it and things. So, and then the second time, so I'd had put out my times when I thought I'd go, like around about 28 hours, and I was hitting them within minutes for the first, sort of three. And then when they left me at Selwyn, which was like 50 Ks, so then there was 70 Ks by myself. So the plan was to go back, have a sleep, and for 4 or 5 hours, then come back up. And then they reckon because I was I was well advanced in that sort of section and stuff, and was putting on the thing. Matt said he put his head down and he was ready to go to sleep, and then George come, right, we're going to go. Nigel's flying. So the best laid plans didn't actually go to plan. So yeah.
But I mean, I guess a good problem to have that you're doing well, I guess.
Yeah, everything was going okay. So
yeah. So when you're racing, because obviously you did quite a fast pace, 25 hours for 100 mile with how much ascent was it in total?
I think it was just on 10,000. Yep.
Yeah. So that's what you would normally consider a slow course, but that's a fast time. What sort of effort level were you putting out throughout the run?
Yeah. So my plan was to be pretty comfortable to try and get to halfway in good shape, and then just see how I'll go. As I said, I got it was strange in this race. Like I was still feeling good, and seeing the crew at 50, and then I don't know how this come, but I got to the mental headspace of like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm done. I'm fucking retired. I'm quitting. I'm going to pull out. I was so bad.
I'm never entering a race again.
I was so over it. I was done. And and that was just early on in the race. We still had 100 Ks to go, and then I fell over and bits and pieces, and then we just got to a downhill section where that I was going okay. I felt comfortable, and that's when Owen sort of dropped off a little bit, and that was able to get my mind back going and still rolling. And so, as I said, I was still feeling good. And then we got to a drink point at about 65 Ks, and they were fumbling around, and I just thought, oh, look, I'm just going to go, and they'll catch me. They're very good runners. And it was a flat road, and I'll just plug along and thing. But when I sort of got going, I was going at like sub 5 minute K pace. Yes, and I was feeling really comfortable. Like I wasn't putting much effort in. So, at that stage, I was feeling still very good. So that rolled for the next 7, 8, 9 Ks and stuff like that as well. So at that stage, still feeling good. And then we went into the next aid station, and I was still feeling good. So that's when I put the gap on the guys as well, where I think you just got to know in the race where you're at. And and if I was still feeling good without putting much effort, well, then just roll with it. So then did that, went up to the Viking, turned around, come back, and I got down to sort of that flat section, which was sort of like a semi-steady incline, not too bad. But I got to the stage, I said to myself that I need to get a break. So normally, you just walk those things. I actually pushed it. I was trying to I just time it on my watch, that if I was 200, 400 or 600, I'd just push it. If it was, I thought I could only go 200, I'd go 400. I just think to make sure that push it along where I knew they'd be either walking or whatever. And this would be the section that I'd make some time. So, I think you just got to pick where it is. And then in general, after that, it was, power walk the hills or the inclines, and run the flats and the downs. So, but then it was funny when Matt joined me at 120, and he hadn't paced for me before, so it was a bit of trial and error and stuff like that as well. Because I know it's like you don't know whether you go in front, behind, too fast, and then he got going and he sort of started trying to run a few things. I go, all right, I knew I was in the lead then, and I go, it's my race to lose now. I don't need to push if I don't have to. So let's just keep with the rhythm, and then we got in a good rhythm of power hiking and running the flats, and that was enough. And I was still putting time into them. So
that's awesome. That's great.
Yeah. So my theory in general is just keep moving, like regardless of how you're going, just keep moving is the thing, because you either get yourself back into a rhythm and you can get going again, or you just really need to move as fast as you can. So. Yeah.
And what's the, being an out and back, obviously you do the turnaround and then you run back past those guys coming along behind you, is there a bit of a nod and a hey, or do you bring the shoulders up and look like you're...
Go for a bit of a sprint?
I was actually happy to see Owen, and he was probably, 500 meters. So I knew I had about a K. Yeah. And he, when I saw him, he looked like, he was doing it like it was not easy, but I was pretty confident at that stage I was stronger than him. Yeah. And then when I saw Matt, he was another, I think I saw him at like 1.3K. So I nearly had 2 and a bit Ks on him. And I was like, I think I've got him covered, essentially. It's virtually down to me and Owen. So, yeah, so said hello to the guys and stuff like that. We're all, it was tough going that the Viking sort of thing. But yeah, when I come back down and I saw the other guys further on down, I was like, good luck. Okay, that's brutal.
Yeah, the Viking is tough, isn't it?
And then as we got further, it was coming on dark, and I just couldn't even think to imagine that they're got to do it in the dark, and it was the thunder and lightning was just cracking everywhere, and I was like, mate, these guys, I'm pretty happy where I'm at right now. If this hits where it is, they got some serious because it wasn't easy. It was thick, it was slippery. The markings were there. Like you nearly lose it if you really had to concentrate. So, yeah. So
how close did that thunder and lightning get?
Well, it was seriously felt like it was following me, and it was loud and it was strong. And then I always think like how many cracks it is and how far it is and whatever as well. And I was like, so then when I got to the aid station, I was like, so is there actually a policy, a rule, or whatever, what it is, and they're like, oh, if you have poles, you can just put them away. And I'm like, well, I'm okay there. So it's not going to get me. But seriously, what was going through my head was that I'm in the lead, right? And if we cancel the race now, do I get to win, or is it? So, but I wasn't. Look, I wasn't scared to the point where I would have pulled I was just cautious of what a thing, and it probably passed or didn't quite hit me, essentially. So I was okay, but yeah, it was pretty loud and ferocious there for a while. It was cracking up.
Yeah, so you added to the excitement factor of the race.
Most definitely.
And what do you do for nutrition when you're racing? Because you're pushing quite hard, you'll be burning through the carbs a fair bit. So
yeah. So I'm just a gels man, and I have 1 gel an hour, in general, and just make sure to have that, and then into supplement in between, I might have a Cliff block or something like that, or just if I feel like I need something extra, I'll add that in.
And which gels do you use?
This is very deep. I'm just used the winners gels, right?
Oh, yeah.
And back when I just tried it and I liked it and I've kept it. And
so how long have you been using them?
Oh, forever and a day, for 5, 6.
Normally people find what works for them, one race doesn't the next,
Yeah, so I generally, I never have an upset stomach. I, as I said to everyone, I said, I'll never tell anyone what gel to get. I say, just try all of them until you find one that you like and one that doesn't upset your stomach or whatever, and stick to it. So that's what I did, and whatever it is, and so I just stick that. I know that if I have one every hour, that's generally enough, as well. And so then I'll have that, and then I have some I just use hydrolyte as well in my drink. So 1 hydrolyte, one water, and I just alternate between the two over the time, to just get a bit of electrolytes. And I occasionally have tablets for electrolytes as well, just like for cramps and bits and pieces. And as the race goes on, I generally have them on the half hour and the gel on the hour. So I'm alternating, and I'm always getting some sort of thing within every half an hour, so I don't go to the low stage. So
and when you see your crew, do you eat any solid food?
Yeah, so generally, I don't think the first one, I love watermelon. So I was watermelon and fruitcake, just a bit of sugar and stuff is mainly what I have. And then when I have solids, I'll have noodles with the broth. And I told Georgia off she didn't have enough broth and water in there. And she goes, Jesus, I don't know how to make 2-minute noodles. But yeah, it's all the salt and stuff in there is things. So yeah, I had that at one of them, and then I think the next one or one of them along, they had a toasted sandwich. So that was good. So I had that, and then went to have a toast sandwich on one of the next ones, and I was like, I can't eat this. It was like I was eating concrete. And then towards the end at Blowhard Heart, I needed something to eat, and I knew I needed solids, and they had soup, hash browns, and that brought me back. That was 100% what I needed, and it was easy to eat. And yeah, so that I'm not that adventurous. I keep it really simple.
I think that's smart.
Yeah, and I know it works for me, so I stick to that sort of formula. Whatever works out of those, and occasionally have a couple of Cliff Bars and stuff like that if I get to the point. Because the last aid station, I was like, man, I don't want to see another gel again. Like, so, I was pretty done on those, so I started on the Cliff Bars and stuff instead. So
yeah, no, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
And so, how did you find the run down?
Well, before you get to there, because I'm not a 100-mile runner, but I can only imagine. I drove up and down the road several times during this race, but also at other times I've done it, other GSERs, and that road seems to me to go on forever. And at that particular point in the race, I would stand at the start of that road and go, "Kill me now."
Which one is this going up to Blowhard Heart?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Once you come down off the trail.
Yeah. It actually did drag on a little bit, and it was near Whiteout as well. And I knew there was that little offshoot, and we actually went past it slightly, and I was like, nah, it's here somewhere. We need to go back about 20 meters or so. And then you do that loop, which sort of seems semi-pointless. And then you get into Asia, and then you're on the road again. And you're like, I think our guy said it was only like 500 meters. I'm like, I'm fairly certain it was more than 500 meters on the way down. Which is probably another K and a half or something like that. So it did drag along. Cos as well, we're only power walking.
Yeah,
I think we got because again I was still trying to conserve energy. I didn't want to bust myself up if I didn't have to go there. So, but we got to the top of that crest there, and the heavens were starting to open, and I was actually cold, and I was the best decision I made was that and this was from DU where I was like on the top of Mount Blackwood. I wasn't going to put on my jacket, and my pace is like, you need to put it on. I'm like, I don't. So then I had that moment. They go, you need to think straight here, So I put balaclava gloves and jacket on, and then the heavens opened, and literally the earth fell out of the sky, and I was like, oh, this is the best. And so yeah, it was at that point, I was bloody happy I made that decision. So,
yeah. So I know it's hard when you're in a race to sometimes realize that you need to put those warm clothes on, but it's so important.
Because I got by. I took my jacket off early days in the race up Northwest Spur. Like I was cooking up, and I was like, I'll just run with my long sleeve thermal, which is a lightweight one, regulates the temperature really well. And it'd been sufficient enough to that point, but I actually started to shiver and stuff, and I was like, okay, I really need to. Again, it's about listening to your body, and it's telling you what it needs to do. That sometimes we don't listen to it, and the signs are there. So you got to be really in tune to it. So.
Yeah, 100%. No, that's really good advice. Honestly. Now, just going back to your training and that sort of stuff, I'm wondering, because you are there now at your daughter's gymnastics, and you work full time, quite long days. Where do you find the time to train?
Yeah, so I'm a real early riser. I don't have too many training partners sometimes because we do start, but I've got a couple of groups I run with in the city and stuff. We call ourselves the 5:45 group, so because that's what time we start at, and that'll be like midweek runs, and sort of fit a bit in if I'm doing some speed work or just casual sort of stuff. And then the other crew, the Macedon crew, generally it got down to the stage it was just me and Matt half the time. But yeah, we would be 5:45, 5:30 is pretty stock standard to try and fit 2 hours in or so before work. And then there's been the occasional ones where like I'm 3 o'clock, whatever. And on the weekends, like kids play basketball, so I've got to be done by 7 o'clock or something like that. So I've got to be 4 hours in. So I literally get up, depending on how far I've got to run, whatever it is. I'll generally do all my running in the morning. At night, it just doesn't happen. So I concede. So I'll do it. Or if occasionally I've been running with Matt and I'm like, I've got to leave you here because I've got to get to basketball and stuff like that. So it'd be like a 10K time trial home to make sure. But generally very early. And some days people ask, I don't even ask people to come because I know that I'm going that early. So
yeah, wow.
A lot of people's wives go, no, he's stupid and you're not allowed to go training with him. No.
But do you think that helps with your mental toughness for your races?
Yeah, like my mum's friend goes to my mum, she goes, so when's he going to sleep? And she's like, he's not. And then after the race was run, she goes, so when did he sleep? And I was like, she goes, he didn't. And and someone else asked me, I go, man, it's only 24 hours. Like you can do that on your head. Like, but I've done days where we've done 24 hours and we've gone back to work. And so essentially the time and still being mentally like with it, it doesn't bother me essentially. And getting up, you got to train the way you want to race. So if you've got to go through the night or whatever it is, you need to train like that, where it's not just going to magically happen on the day. And so this is what I stress to people. You know, if you want to run a certain time or the pace and that, I would run, like obviously in the race that I drop in sub 5 minute there. I do that in training. Like it might, as I said, it might be the last 10 Ks of a run, or I've got to get to basketball, but I'm doing that on the back end of a 40K run. If I do it in training, I can do it on game day. So yeah, it's all relative, I reckon.
Yeah, that makes sense. So what's your recovery been like?
Look, do you know what? I've pulled up really, really well. I did get a massage after the race, which I think was a new element that I haven't really done, the day of the race. So, which was really good. But I think my training this time, even like going to DU where I couldn't walk for a week, this time I know that I've done better training. And if I did DU now, that I reckon I'd cope better after it. But yeah, so my training's been really good, and I didn't need to go to the absolute well. I didn't get cramps in the run. Things all went really well. So I pulled up, considering well, and I went for a run on the Thursday. And I wasn't, there was with the Dandenong crew. And I was like, we ended up doing 800 vert in the 12 days. I was like, mate, this is not what I was wanting for. So I took it pretty bloody easy. But then, I was back on the wheelbarrows like by the Wednesday, Thursday that week, essentially. But yeah, I think keeping moving in some shape or form is the best thing. So, but I put up pretty well and went for a run on Sunday and yeah, so just lightly, nothing crazy. But I've pulled up so good that I've entered another race.
Oh God, what?
The whole stones sort of thing has got a hold of me at the moment.
Yes.
So I'm doing Mount Kosciuszko 100.
Nice.
So this is very unlike me. I don't normally back up so close to getting him, but I definitely didn't have 160 in me. But I'm going to do the 100 there just to.
Okay, and that's not as big on vert anyway.
This was part reason why I looked at it and I was like, it's actually fairly gentle considering it's only like 3.3 or 3.1 or something like that. And it seems like there's no Northwest Spur, there's no Viking or anything like that, and it seems like it's pretty gentle. So if I just want to cruise, I think I'll get through it all right.
So are you going to go for the win, or are you just going to go for finishing the run for the stones?
I haven't made that decision totally. I have checked the field out and it seems pretty hot. There is a couple of good runners there. So whether I could win on my best day would be, you'll probably have to pull something out of the bag. But I'm actually just going to wait and see. It's only 3 weeks. I've only just finished it. So I'm pretty keen to just see how my body goes. And if it's not feeling so great, I'll just cruise. If I feel like I'm good, I know my competitive juices will push me along. So yeah, I haven't made my mind up.
Well, I was going to ask, because you sort of mentioned DU, is the plan to do DU again next year?
So I'm pacing. So my pacer Matt, he's actually locked in. So I'm definitely pacing this year. It's still got a nag about me. I reckon I could, again, I think I'm physically fitter and better now that I could have, done it better, I reckon.
Wow.
But because I've won it and finished it, I don't have that empty void. So I will just wait and see. So not too sure. What about yourself?
God, no.
I was going to say, when you sent me the message and you're like, is the rest of this course that horrible? I don't think Isabel's really ready for this race.
I just didn't, I would enjoy a little bit of the race that I do.
Yeah.
And it's just maybe I'm not used to that terrain, but it was I didn't enjoy the terrain, quite frankly.
It is brutal. It's a bloody true test to your testament, that race, I tell you.
Yeah. No. It's a tough course, and I don't mind tough courses. That's not the issue. But I have to say I didn't overly enjoy the terrain. So
no, I think I knew at that stage, right? I think I rang him. I go, I don't think Isabel, this is the race. And then when it all went pear-shaped, I was like, yeah, it's definitely not.
No, I think I just kind of lost my whole will to live, quite frankly.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah,
I did that on the 25K training run that we did.
Oh my God, it was.
I lost it big time.
Yeah.
Well, as I said to Matt, we've got to do the old river in training. So
that was where we were, and
yeah,
at one point,
we could not believe it when we first did it in training. We're like, "What the hell? This can't be part of the course."
yeah. So that's mandatory. So I look forward to doing that again, just in training. I know I've done it 3 times, but it sounds like fun. You should come.
Yeah, let me know. I'll be busy.
Yeah, exactly.
So, obviously, when you're talking about the Australians, you're talking about UTMB.
Yep.
So, what year are you hoping to do that?
This is we've been talking about overseas, and then my kids and my family been all over me to go because they want to go on holiday and this. So like, let's try and get UTMB. Anyway, I didn't realise GSER was an index rating. I've done a bit of research now. Like they were all over, and I was like, on Sunday after the race, leave me alone. I don't even want to think about another race for And then on the Monday, I was doing a bit of research, and then the cutoff is actually 30th December. So I can actually, if I do stones now, I can go in the lottery to be 2023.
Oh, nice.
Oh yeah. So that's why I'm doing another run. So now I've got
doing it for the family.
Yeah, exactly. So they can go shopping and do whatever.
That's right.
Yeah. So now I've got a rating in the 50, 100 and the miler. So essentially now I just need a stone. So that's why. And then I thought, I'm not driving 6 hours to go for a 27K race and get 1 stone. So that's where I decided I settled on the 100 and I'll get 3 stones and have 3 cracks at it. And I don't know how it all works with the UTMB.
I don't understand it.
I don't understand it so much, but I'm a lot wiser now. But I know that the cutoff is the 30th. So I thought it's because I'm feeling good. It's worth a throw at the stumps. And if I can get in next year, I know I'm going really well. Otherwise, it's still going to be 2024 at best. So
yeah, I mean, which is fine. I mean, but you've got this opportunity. Why not?
Yeah. Well, that's right. That's how I saw it.
So if you don't get into UTMB, what would be your other options for later in the year?
I don't know. There's always I don't know. There's a couple other ones there. My sister lives in Canada, so there's one over in Canada.
Cat dog?
Nah, the Sixth Sense or the something like that. It's over near Calgary somewhere that way.
Yeah, which one is it?
Oh,
Sinister.
Star, that's the one.
Yeah,
Yes.
nice one. Yeah,
Yeah, so
that's yep.
that's in about June, July.
Yeah.
Maybe
Because
that
you
one.
should do the Sinister Triple.
No, I did look at that. It looks pretty nasty.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah, they look like they have some really nice ones over there. So yeah, maybe something like that. But yeah, I'd like to, dabble a little bit more overseas if I, yeah. As
Canada,
much
can I
I
just
love,
say you would love the Canadian mountains. I mean,
yeah,
Europe's great too, but
yeah,
Canada's awesome.
yeah. So yeah, there's just a couple of options. But yeah, and maybe I've still got a nagging of going back to UTM, which works out for UTA. So last time I was there, I did my hamstring.
Yeah.
30 Ks in. So I was like, I'd need to go, even though I finished it, I just really want to run that course as hard as I could. But that may be on the cards, especially if I've got to get stones. I'll probably do that one because it works in with DU is now earlier in end of April. And then I can race in May, if that's when the dates were. So that works for me as well.
Yeah. So how long have you been running?
I did triathlons and so forth when I was younger, and so that was sort of my running, and I just gave it all away to play footy. And then when I was like 10 or so years ago, I finished footy, and I got into I wanted to run marathons and do a couple of things. So I've been in New York and done a couple of things like that, and I was back into the triathlons and they got cancelled. So then I got to UTA, a mate said to do it. And I've ever since I've gone that to the trails, I haven't looked back essentially. So it took me a while to sort of transform my body from playing a football body to running, and then get the training and so forth as well. Like the knowledge and the trial and error and stuff like that. I think I'm fine tuning it a lot now. So
can I ask how old are you?
So I'm 43.
Okay. So, yep. So you've still got quite a few, strong years ahead of you. Well,
I'm still feeling fit, and as I said, these and Owen, he's 41 and as well, and I was like, what is with these young guys? They're meant to be beating us. If that was me when I was, I would have been the competitor of, I'm not letting this old bloke beat me. That would be me.
It's only 2 years,
I mean, like the other guy, like Matt, who will run. He was 20. He's 24, 25.
Okay. But ultra running does tend to play to the strengths of older people too, though.
Yeah, I think you got a bit more knowledge and strength in your body, and it's a bit different. I think you're still learning so much when you're younger and stuff like that. You're still learning for yourself, let alone anything. Where again, the ultras is a really mind game type of sort of situation. Like I probably wouldn't have been ready for it when I was younger. Like now, I'm so that's what I thrive on. I suppose back then you probably would have spat me out.
When you had those low moments at the start when you were saying this is shit, I don't want to do this. That when you're young, that's probably
who knows. You're wavering a bit, but when you're older, I suppose the older and wiser I'll stick with.
And like when you talk about listening to your body, not that young people don't, but I think as you get older, you learn how important that is to do.
Yeah, and I've learned that from even training, like overtraining, and just being a real numbers man and whatever. And then this is what I try and teach Matt. Okay, it's not a numbers game. I'm telling you, you don't have to finish on 12 Ks or whatever, do 100 Ks a week.
I try to tell him that.
You just stop, mate, because you actually don't need it anymore. If that was your
there's no extra benefit from doing that 324 meters.
Yeah, so you might still do 60 Ks a week, but like you'll do 5,000 vert, like sort of thing. Like it's just all relative. And yeah, I've learned that over time. I used to be pretty anal and whatever of what it is, but yeah, it is what it is. Whatever I feel like my body will tell me, nah, you're done today. Just shut up shop.
Yeah.
No,
that's awesome. All righty. Well, that sounds like a good spot to put a pin in it. So thank you so much for joining us. And once again, congratulations on your run, because it was absolutely epic.
It was a massive run. And we were watching, the tracking, and at first we saw that the three of you were together, and we were going, well, Nigel's Nigel. Owen's, a bloody good runner, so he'll really give Nigel a, run for his money. And then the next time we looked at it, you started to pull away from him, like, wow,
Yeah,
he must be working
it
hard.
was funny in the run. I was like, okay, we're going to run for three of us together, and at some stage, someone's going to pull in. I was like, I don't know when this is going to be and how it's going to happen, or how I don't have any plan of thing. I'm just going to plug along as long as I'm feeling good. If I feel shabby, I'll just pull off and do whatever. And then, yeah, when it actually come to be me being the one that was stronger, it was like, oh, well, now's just the time to go, and you go. So, it's funny. Like, I don't know what their plan was that we're thinking. I didn't completely have one. I'm a real intuitive sort of thing by feel. You got to be feeling it during the thing, rather than go, okay, between 50 and something, I'm just going to go. Like, you just got to really listen to how you're feeling or whatever. And so, but it was all. It takes me a fair bit to give myself a little bit of a credit for what I do some days. And after I sat back and I was like, I know, I was pretty happy. And it seems to, hopefully inspired other people as well. So
I think so. And I think you went into it and executed the race, just perfectly. So yeah. Well done. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Good luck at COSI.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how you go.
Well, we'll just see. We'll decide whether we're racing or just, I don't know yet.
I bet you race.
More than likely.
That's fine. That's good. Oh, well. All right. Thanks for that and good luck.
No worries. Thank you.
Bye.